Hi, thanks for joining me today for the Bell video blog. I am Eric Bjornstead with Bell Performance, and today we want to talk a little bit about history, specifically history of ethanol use in the United States. Now, I promise that this is not going to be as boring as it sounds because there are a couple of points that we want to make as we run through this. So, let's get started. Ethanol did not suddenly just start in the year 2006. It has actually been used in American automobiles way back since when automobiles were invented. Ethanol was really popular in the 1890s. It was really popular with Henry Ford's Model Ts in 1907, 1909, when Robert Bell invented the first fuel additive of all time, a detergent to treat both gasoline and ethanol. Now, the ethanol situation as we know it dates back to 1978. That was when the EPA really started this Renewable Fuels Act, or RFA, and they set limits on the percentage of ethanol in fuel. Now, that really didn't influence anything until the Renewable Fuel Standard was passed. I said RFA earlier, and I did misspeak, so just ignore that. What we're talking about is the RFS, the Renewable Fuel Standard, which was passed 27 years later in 2005. Now, what happened though, and this is why this is important, when Congress set the rules in 1978, they basically said how much ethanol is allowed in gasoline, which is kind of a passive thing. The Renewable Fuel Standard shifted the language from allowed to mandate. And what that implied is that drivers were going to be forced, either explicitly or implicitly, they were going to be forced to use ethanol. The RFS defined how many billions of gallons were required or mandated to be used in the nation's fuel supplies. Now, again, this is 2005 that we're talking about, so it said in 7 years we're going to require that 7.5 billion gallons of the nation's fuel supply is going to have to be renewable fuels, which generally means ethanol. And then it's going to keep going up. 2012, you're going to need 9 billion gallons, and then 2022 is going to be all the way up to, I believe, like 36 billion gallons. That's a lot of renewable fuels. So again, note the subtle shift in language from allowed to mandated. So, that's where we're at today. And now we're talking about getting E15 mandated into the nation's fuel supply. And the introduction of it has been a little bit slower than you would have expected when they first announced a few years ago that they were going to be facing this. Some people might say that the people who are so concerned about these ethanol mandates don't really need to worry about it. That they're being overblown when they talk about political mandates and such. But if you talk to some people within the industry, what they'll point out is that the government has been mandating things from the fuel suppliers for years. They point to this idea of cellulosic ethanol. Cellulosic ethanol is ethanol that is produced not from the corn and stuff that you might normally eat or that animals might eat, but from stuff like the stalks and the leaves and the parts that we and animals, well, mostly we, can't typically eat, the parts with a lot of cellulose. And the holy grail for ethanol production has been being able to take that secondary waste, so to speak, and turn it into ethanol. Unfortunately, nobody's been able to crack that in such a way that it has been financially feasible. But yet, Congress and the politicians mandate that they do that. And so therein creates a problem. Now, the ethanol lobby, part of the point that we're talking about this is not just to point out that somebody's mandating something. I mean, who cares? It's interesting to note, and it's relevant to note, and should be concerning to note, that the ethanol lobby is starting to make a more concerted, systematic lobbying push to get E15 mandated as much as possible. Now, a lot of people have a big problem with that. And a lot of people have a big problem, not just because the 15% ethanol, they're going to get 50% more damage and 50% more problems, but because they have an almost philosophical objection to the idea that we're being forced to use something that isn't even profitable on its own. The ethanol lobby relies on government mandates to be able to last. A lot of ethanol supporters really dispute this, but it seems that the facts are pretty clear. The government essentially supports the ethanol industry. And if the government were to take away all of its support for that, then it's highly unlikely that they would be able to be doing the things that they're doing. So that is the kind of the situation that we're at today. The ethanol industry, I'm probably going to get a few nasty comments about this. We'll see, but fortunately, you want to talk about corporate welfare for companies like ExxonMobil and such. Well, take a look at the ethanol industry. You've gone from it being just a choice of use of fuels, in the 1890s and 1900s, to we suggest you use this in 1978, to hey, you got to use it, and it doesn't matter if you don't like it, you're using it anyway. So anyway, thanks for joining me today. If you liked this information, we have plenty more where this came from on lots of different subjects. Just go to bellperformance.com or our other website, wefixfuel.com. So I am Eric Bjornstead with Bell Performance. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.